Assalamualaikum and greetings everyone. Welcome back to our video lecture slides series, and this is video lecture slides week 4. Particularly for this video lecture slides, we are going to look at Buddhism, history, Chinese mythology, as well as the belief system for Buddhism. At the end of this video lecture slides, all of you should be able to organize major religions of the world through the study of history and worldview effectively. And this is course learning outcome 1. So let's begin. So when you talk about the history of Buddhism, basically one thing that everybody must be clear of is the fact that Buddhism started from Hinduism. So we have Hinduism, and then one portion or one part of Hinduism moved away in order to develop this new religion, which is called Buddhism. And if you look here, it says that the history 5th century before Christ to present. So when you talk about time or when for Buddhism, you can always say after Hinduism. So there's no need to mention the date, the year, or you can just say 5th century before Christ to present. And if you talk about the origin or the location, where in terms of the location itself that this started, as I said, because Buddhism was actually one portion of Hinduism, so Buddhism started in India itself. And because of this, you really have to understand some of the obvious similarities between Hinduism and Buddhism. As we go along this video lecture slides, as well as the course itself, you will realize the similarities. And if you talk about the founder is what we call Siddhartha Gautama. So just now we talk about the when, after Hinduism, and then we talk about where, India, and now we talk about who. So this is actually, Buddhism is actually based on the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama. And because of this, because it is after Hinduism, it is one of the oldest religions practiced today. And to continue with the history, when you talk about the movement of all religions in the world, they do not stay put at a place. Basically, they move around from one place to the other. So if you talk about Buddhism itself, so we can say that from the Indian subcontinent to Central, East and Southeast Asia. So Malaysia is one part of Southeast Asia. And at one point or time or the other, Buddhism has been influenced by the locality of the place that it actually came to. And the history of Buddhism, you can say that is also characterized by the development of several schools of thoughts or several practices, and among them would be Theravada, Mahayana, as well as Vajrayana traditions. And because of this, you will see, plus the locality of that particular place, you will see that the practices, the rituals will be slightly different from one Buddhist practitioners to the other, if you talk about different geographical locations. And one thing, when we talk about the history, or when we talk about Buddhism itself, is that the people in China, mainland China, they have a very complicated and complex mythology. And this actually dated back to 4,000 years ago. Yeah, so it's very complex, it's very difficult to understand for those who do not have the background of this. So basically, the idea is that sometimes it's going to be very difficult to distinguish between history, myth and reality. So because all those, they are intertwined. Something happened, and then through word of mouth, people talk about it, and then the later generations wouldn't be able to distinguish between whether this story is a myth or this story is a reality or it's part of history, because of this. And In this tradition, there were three great religious traditions: Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. However, for UNESCO actually acknowledges Buddhism as the major religions in the world. But a lot of Chinese in Malaysia, they practice Taoism. And for Confucianism, this is basically the philosophy of education most of the time. But it is considered one of the three great religious traditions. And these three traditions have actually played a huge role in shaping the mythology. And because of that, as I said earlier on, it is sometimes difficult to distinguish between reality and myth. Now, moving on to the belief system. If we go back to Hinduism, we have four. We started with Atman, and then we have Dharma, and then we have Karma, and then we have Moksha. For the Buddhism, we have three levels. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, you have to arrange the belief system for Hinduism as well as Buddhism in order. So first, it will start with Sila. Sila is actually the good conduct, the morality, the virtue of someone. And basically, Sila has two fundamental principles. Now, your task is actually to search for these two fundamental principles. And then we will talk more about this in our daily or in our class sessions. So Sila, two fundamental principles. Remember, you have to search for these two fundamental principles and talk about it in our next class. The second layer is Samadhi. Now, Samadhi is actually mental development. After you have actually gained this virtue, then you will have to develop your mental properly. So this is where your concentration on your religion, the meditation, and so on will come into play. So when you develop your mind properly, that will lead you to the path to wisdom. So you will be a person who's aware of what is right, what is wrong, because of your mental development has actually developed or stable. And this actually allows you to maintain good conduct. Last but not least, similar to moksha, we have prajna. Now, prajna is insight, wisdom, enlightenment. So this is where you have reached, or the believers of Buddhism, they have reached this point where, they do not desire the materialistic items or whatever wealth in the world anymore. So this is where they will be calm, they will be pure, and they will basically let go of everything that they have. So once you have reached prajna, then that's it. That's the top part of it. So it says here you don't have to actually search for it. So I was thinking that perhaps you should go and search for it, but as it is already stated here, two principles under Sila. So remember, Sila is the first layer of the belief system for Buddhism. So under Sila, there's two principles. The first one is equality, where all living things or all living entities are treated equally or are equal. And then the second principle would be the principle of reciprocity. Reciprocity is where you actually, when you do good things, then you will get good things. So this is actually, if you look at Christianity, the golden rule. So if you do unto others as you would wish them to do unto you, then you will get the same kind of treatment. So I believe that this principle or principle for reciprocity is actually present in all religions. You do good things, you will get things. For example, in Hinduism, we have karma. So this is the law of cause and effect. So for Sila, the first layer of the belief system for Buddhism, two principles of equality and then of reciprocity, two principles under Sila. And I guess, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. So because I have actually explained here the two principles, supposedly you were to search for the information on these two principles under Sila. But now, because it's already stated here, what we will do in our next class is actually to look at this Sila Sabdi Prajna individually, and then we will have to do a lot of discussion and to find examples of this in the real world today. And to summarize, for the history, we have actually talked about who Siddhartha Gautama, when after Hinduism, where India. Now we are missing, ladies and gentlemen, the how. How do the believers of Buddhism learn about this? So this will be your real task that we are going to discuss in our class. So ladies and gentlemen, should you have any questions whatsoever, do not be afraid. Just WhatsApp me personally, or you can WhatsApp in our WhatsApp group, or you can email me. So until we meet again, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum and greetings once again to everybody.